Thank you. Give yourself a pat on the back for listening to this episode, guys, and Happy New Year's. We have John Martinez, the founder of REI Sales Academy, helping investors in their acquisitions turn more leads into deals and buying those houses at deeper discounts. In my perspective, he is the authority in sales training, everything investor world-wise, and is featured in our lead conversion masterclass. I was telling John, a lot of our Investor Fuse members have absorbed some of his content in some form or fashion the last few years here. So whether it's training or even following his daily content on social media, which I'm a big fan of, just getting nice insight from, could not recommend him more to you guys. So John, thank you for joining us. I would like to hear just a few quick things before we dive into the meat and potatoes here, but just in short, kind of your story and how you became the authority in the sales training space in our real estate investing niche industry.
Yeah, so it was completely by accident. Been a sales guy my whole life. Started in all commission sales in my late teens, early 20s. Worked my way up through kind of corporate America and bigger roles. Ended up in the technology space, software space, infrastructure space, building and leading sales teams essentially as VP of sales and marketing, marketing director, and those types of roles. About 6 years ago, I decided to just do the one piece that I enjoyed the most, which was training the salespeople. Launched a sales training company. We were in about 4 dozen industries within that first year. Then we got pulled in with one client into the REI space, and it really took off in the REI space specifically. I think because we were bringing stuff from outside of that industry into the industry, and it worked really well. That took over my business. We ended up shutting down every other industry, and now I solely focus on the real estate investment space.
Very cool. Yeah, fresh perspective, outside perspective can typically be helpful for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, man. And then before we dive into the meat and potatoes here, I'm just curious from a mindset, personal development standpoint. I always like to pick people's brain, especially when they are the authority in a specific niche or industry. But
sure.
That year or so, that short time frame leading up to becoming the authority in the sales training space, what did that look for you from like a mindset, psychology, what you were thinking day in, day out, transitioning to that?
It's something I still live with every day because I continually launch businesses, and it's just it's getting punched in the face a lot and learning from it and pivoting and moving on. It's just it's so cliche, but it's so true at the same time. Just that first year and every year since, all of our progress in this business, REI Sales Academy, and every business has been from almost a daily or weekly look back on what's working and not working, pivoting and moving forward. And I'd say that's what we owe our success to, is listening to the market and really seeing what's working. The last company I worked with before starting my own company, my wife and I would talk all the time and say, we love the owner to death, probably the favorite person I've ever worked for. But he was so set in his ways of, this is the way the business is going to be, and I'm never going to change, and we'll find a way to make it work. And I would just say, there's so much opportunity I see out there, running the sales team, that if we just did this or change this just a little bit, or then there's just so much opportunity waiting for us, and he wouldn't change. So that was a big lesson I learned when starting my own business. And what I really owe a lot of that success to was, we promised ourselves that when something wasn't working, we weren't just going to dig our feet into the ground and push forward. We would learn from it. Now, sometimes you do have to push forward, but you also have to just pay attention to what's going on around you and give the market what it wants.
Love how you broke that down. Could not agree with it more. And it encapsulated 2 of my favorite things. One, just reflection in general, kind of a stoic philosophy. And I'm a big fan of doing a weekly reflection just from a daily planner I have, where you can kind of take the emotions out of it, see if you need to make adjustments or do the brute force. And the second thing, principles, being radically open-minded to other things and not set in your way, which is the exact polar opposite of being set in your way, is radical open-mindedness. So being open to anything, again, the outside perspective there. Awesome, man. Well, I don't want to make the listener wait. Where could people find either free stuff that you have, sales training, anything like that? And then we'll dive into, as I said, the main part of the interview.
So our website, you can find everything from. On our website, we've got probably 100 plus free training videos. It also points you to our YouTube channel where we probably have 200 plus free training videos on
Very cool.
everything from hiring to marketing to the sales stuff. So MidwestRev.com, Midwest REV as in revenue, .com is the website. It'll take you anywhere you want to go.
Very cool. I'll put that in the show notes so you guys can check that out. 2020, real estate investing. There's been this rise, as the Dominion Group here locally in Baltimore say, that the age of the guru, which started about 6 years ago or so, where there's these wholesaling podcasts, all that stuff. It's getting super popular, low barrier to entry to get in here, man. All these people are working hard to generate leads, spending money on marketing, spending time working leads, following up with them. I want to know from a high level, just to kick this thing off, how can understanding human psychology benefit these investors in their business, in their wholesaling business?
Yeah, I mean, it's everything. You know what? In any business, what happens is the deliverable ends up being the easiest part. So for a real estate investor, for example, over time, over the first 6 months to a couple of years, what's going to happen is the real estate part becomes super easy. I have a property. What do I do with it, right? What's my exit strategy? The part that where business is made successful or unsuccessful has to do with human psychology. It's the marketing and sales piece. It's the attracting prospects and converting them into clients, or attracting leads and turning it into deals, right? That's where success is made. And that's all human psychology, right? How do I get someone's attention? That's marketing. And how do I turn that person into a client? That's sales. That's 100% human psychology. And, you know, if you listen to any business great like Richard Branson or I can't think of any others off the top of my head, Mark Cuban, for example, they'll tell you, well, you know, business is all the same. It's just this widget, but it's all sales and marketing, and the back end is this widget. That's how I look at my business and every other business. I used to think, for example, I love our sales training. I think it's amazing. I think it's the best in the country, if not the world right now, just because of the results we get and stuff. But I've also realized, as good as it is, the success of our business is all the marketing and the sales, because it doesn't matter how good it is if you don't have customers, right? So I think business is 99% sales and marketing, and sales and marketing is 100% human psychology.
Love that. And yeah, it makes it a lot easier too when you have belief in your service, product, whatever you're selling, which kind of has a negative connotation to it too. Salespeople, everything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just take that as a given, though. You got to believe in what you're doing. For example, I work with real estate investors. I believe in what they do. I think the ones that struggle, like, for example, if people who hire acquisition agents, if the acquisition agents don't feel like they're doing something good, they'll never succeed. I can train in this space because I believe in it. When my mom was hard up a couple of years ago with a house disrepair, same type of thing, right? All the kids left the house. We sold to an investor, right, at a discount, because it was an amazing solution, got us out of a jam, and I 100% believe in it. So, you know, I think where this conversation might end up going is scaling and hiring and everything. And that's probably the first insight I have to it is, if people don't believe in what you're doing, they're never be able to sell it.
Foundation, step one is have 100% conviction, belief in your product, service, what you're doing. Love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, 100%. Let's stick to that, just because for most of our members, most of our community, sales, either an acquisition is either the first hire, second hire in a solopreneur or an entrepreneur's real estate investing business. Yeah. So you can kind of hit this with a broad stroke how you want to take it, because also, guys, John talks to a lot of high-level people. I'd probably say that most of your clients or the people that you bump shoulders with are high-level people, not more so the newer investors.
Yeah.
So you got a ton of nuggets from there.
Yeah, we don't work with any newer investors.
Okay.
I'd say our average investor is doing a minimum of 50 deals a year. Our biggest clients are doing in the neighborhood of 3,000 plus, multiple markets backed by hedge fund, that type of thing. So that's a requirement to work with us, is you got to be up and running, marketing, getting leads, doing deals already. So that's all we work with, are those seasoned types of investors. So that's where my perspective comes from.
Awesome. Yeah. So he'll have great feedback just from hearing from top people all over the country, whether they're just doing one market virtually, over the phone, in person, everything like that. So yeah, let's talk from a high level. We got belief, conviction in your service, seasoned investor. What kind of advice would you have for making that first one or two hires on the sales side?
Yeah, my first piece of advice would be to overhire. Hire more people than you think you need, because the most common struggle I see investors have when they kind of move to this next step of scaling up and hiring acquisition agents, or just, maybe they're not even scaling up. They might just be replacing themselves, which is cool too. The biggest problem I see is they go all in on one salesperson, and they do this over and over again. And it makes sense why, but they go all in on one salesperson. They go, I think this is going to be the person. Doesn't make sense. I don't have lead flow for multiple people or anything like that. So I'm going to hire this one person. And then what happens is they make it their mission to make this person successful. So they dump all this time and these resources and this training into this person. And they're so emotionally invested that 1 month, 2 months goes by. And if they didn't hire right, then that person's not going to be making it. But then they won't let go of that person because they're thinking, I've already invested so much. I've got to make this work. Another month goes by. And then they're still not cutting it. And they go, well, now I've already given them so many leads. If I get them out of this position, I'm back into it. I've now been out of it 2, 3, 4 months. And I don't want to be back walking into homes. And then they end up for 6 months with the wrong person. Business takes a nosedive until they're just forced to get back out there and start over. And I've seen this process repeat itself 2, 3, 4 times in a row. And there's 2 reasons why it happens. Number one, they rush to the hire too quickly. They don't fully vet the people. And number 2, they don't hire enough people. Bottom line is, if you hire more salespeople than what you need, it'll work out for you. The worst thing that can happen is that, oh, wow, I've got 2 people that both can sell like crazy. Well, if that happens, you're going to find a way to feed them leads. You will find a way to get the marketing to support people who close deals. It will happen. So I think those are the 2 biggest things to look out for is just don't hire too quickly, vet your people correctly. And I'd probably hire more than I need, because chances are you're going to be wrong with 20, 30, 50, 60% of your hires. You want to do that all at the same time, let the bad ones filter out and be left with kind of the best of the best.
Very cool. I appreciate that insight and philosophy. It's kind of like a 6+ month view of it as well, too, assuming that, kind of basic principles, one of them may not work out.
Yeah.
If you were to hire at least 2, multiple salespeople.
Bottom line is, even the good ones, even the great acquisition agents, they don't stay forever. Mm-hmm. Some of them become investors themselves. They go, hey, I've got this, if I just figure out the marketing piece, we've all seen it, right? And then some of them will just take, a higher commission somewhere else, or they'll move, or they'll take another opportunity. So the bad ones don't stick around long, or stick around too long. And then the good ones don't stick around as long as you want to. It'll never be where you just hire 1 acquisition agent or 2 and they stay for life. It does not happen.
Very cool. Quick bullet point there that you may have some great insight on is, where is the best place to hire acquisitions managers from the clients that you work with?
Yeah. So, a couple of pointers is, number one, they don't have to come from real estate. You want them to come from a similar industry, which means business to consumer direct sales. It could be knives or vacuums or vacations. It doesn't matter, but doesn't have to be real estate. But at the same time, you don't want it to be a business to business position, right? If you've got someone who's selling for IBM and it's a 6 to 12 month close, with 10 to 20 decision makers, that success there does not exactly convert to success in the business to consumer direct market. So number one, don't worry about them knowing anything about real estate. Record of success, and look for that track record in the business to consumer industry. Does that make sense, first of all?
Yeah, totally. And it kind of hits that principle of outside perspective again, not needing to be directly in real estate wholesaling.
Right. But you do want to look for a track record of success, because previous, success can be the predictor of future success.
Sure.
So you kind of increase your odds of hiring the right person right there. And then another thing we recommend is some type of psychometric assessment. There's a couple out there that seem to be working really well. And what a psychometric assessment, there's tons of assessments and tests and stuff like that out there. A lot of them are just personality profiles and communication profiles. And those don't really predict success and have a terrible track record of predicting success in sales. It can tell you how to work with these people and what they like and different stuff, but it does not predict behaviors in sales. Psychometric assessments predict what people will actually do in any role. So a psychometric assessment is what you want. One we like is called Objective Management Group. They've got one that's just sales specific, but then there's also another one out there called Predictive Index, which is really good at predicting how people will behave in all sorts of roles. So number one, looking for a track record of success in similar industry. Number two, having some type of assessment, psychometric preferably, that's going to help narrow down those people into who has the best chances of success.
Totally. And both of those kind of hit the premise of using past behavior to predict future performance.
Yes.
Awesome. Talk to me a little bit, John, about having a process in place and making that process for onboarding these 2 or more hires. We're looking for, B2C with sales, right personality, right behavior in the past. What type of process should these folks be making, or maybe look after the hire to make?
Yeah. So I'll give you the whole, so the most successful processes I've seen, number one for the hire and then post-hire ramp up. So usually for the hire, it's going to be put a job, what do you call it? A job
Posting.
ad out there, a posting out there, Indeed, somewhere like that, where tons of people can see it. Drive them all. I would drive them all. Anyone that get their resumes, anybody that has a track record of success, don't even talk to them. Drive them all directly to that assessment of some sort. And then people who pass that assessment, you would do a phone interview with. And then finally, a couple of final interviews with anyone who makes it through the quick 5-minute phone interview. And with that final interview, you're basically just offering the job. That's the quickest, easiest way to do it. You let the resume and the assessment weed out 90% of the people. So you're not wasting time just interviewing a bunch of people. Because if you do start interviewing everyone just right off the bat, here's what's going to happen. You're going to interview 5 or 10, decide you don't want to do it anymore, and then make the wrong hire, right? Because you're like, okay, I've had 10, one person must be good. I'll choose the best one. You don't want to get in that situation. So that's the best process for hiring. Now, once you hire them, you want to onboard them with some type of process. We recommend there's a checklist of stuff that we can share with you if you want. Information that any new hire should know as far as what expectations are, where to go for help, what you're selling, what your competitive advantage is, how people are selling against you, that type of thing. So there's just a checklist of general knowledge they should know. But as far as sales training, what we recommend is first having some type of foundation, whether it's online videos or a manual, anything like that. That's good for just foundational knowledge. You can buy different sales trainings. You can develop it yourself. But again, you want to automate it and have that foundational knowledge. And then you want to move into an application training. Application training, the easiest thing that works to take that knowledge and learn how to apply it in the field is to do a shadow and a shadow reversal, which means at first you would pair that person with yourself if you're the investor buyer, or with a seasoned salesperson, and they would do nothing but for 1, 2, or 3 days, watch, soak it in. And then there's a transition period where they start picking up pieces of the sales process, maybe just, the intro, maybe sharing some information, asking questions throughout. And then you're gonna transition to where you reverse the shadow, and you're just shadowing them. And at the end of each sales call, you're going to give a little bit of feedback. That's been the most effective way by far we've seen salespeople trained. Foundational knowledge, then they just watch, ask questions afterwards, transition into their doing, and then you're giving them feedback afterwards, and then you let them go on their own.
Very cool. Very awesome. I'll make sure to chat with you maybe when we cut this to make sure I have the right content lined up for that, because I'm sure a ton of people would be able to benefit from that.
Sure.
Having that foundation and automation in place. I want to talk a little bit, John, about kind of like I was saying before, like all these investors, data is readily available now. There's so much information people are listening to. Again, give yourself a pat on the back if you're a borderline crazy person that's listening to wholesaling real estate podcasts every day. Love and appreciate that. But these people are working so hard, and there's more investors coming in, iBuyers coming in. I don't want to use the term competition. I try not to see that. Right. But just with more and more people going after the same opportunities. Yeah. Let's talk general, broad strokes, just some sales philosophy and strategies that the listeners can be utilizing here in 2020 and forward to help close more deals, get properties at deeper discounts.
Yeah. So basically, every investor out there has the same tools and the same deliverable. Buying a house for cash has become commoditized, right? It's like, what makes you different than the other investor, the iBuyer, any other people I talk to? Well, here's the bottom line. If you're commoditized, if people don't see anything different in you or your business, the only way they have to make their choice on who they're going to do business with is going to be the amount of that offer. Now, if you're the only game in town, that works because you're the only offer. But as more and more opportunities or options have come in for home sellers, and what's happened is you're not the only game in town. You're not the only offer. And chances are you are no longer going to be the highest offer. So if you don't stand out in some form or fashion, you will not be in business for long, because there are always, at this point in time, we're probably every single market, big and small in the country. Every one of our clients has competition. Everyone is against people with higher offers, bar none. So if you're trying to win just by having the highest offer, you're not going to be in business long. Someone's going to always offer more, even if they can't back it up. So what is your competitive advantage? Well, that ends up being the sales process. It ends up being the conversation you have with the home seller. It ends up being, like you said, high level, broad strokes, knowing their situation and understanding their situation better than anyone else. And what I like to compare this to is like, you've got doctors and you've got surgeons or specialists, right? When you have a simple problem, you go to the doctor, right? I've got the sniffles. I've got something that just requires, a simple prescription. When somebody has a real problem, when someone has a life or death issue, when someone has a serious illness, we don't go to the general practitioner. We go to a specialist, and we travel further, and we wait longer, and we pay more. And the reason why we do that is because that specialist knows our situation, knows our illness, knows whatever's affecting us better than anyone else. And then we feel like they're best equipped to help us, right? It's the exact same thing in real estate investment. People will go with who they feel like understands their situation better than anyone else. So you want to be the specialist. At the end of the day, you're still going to cut a check. And, maybe there's a couple bonuses like a home clean out or some cash up front or something like that, but everyone's got those same tools. So the people that are winning deals when there's higher offers on the table, it is because the home sellers get to a point where they feel like this person understands better than anyone else what my situation is, what I'm trying to accomplish, and therefore I'm going with them because they must be best equipped to help me.
Love that. And on other interviews we had, I've heard with you in them. And guys, again, shoot us an email, info@investorfuse.com, to get access to John's masterclass module where he does, instead of broad strokes, more so really specific stuff with Dan on sales. We'll still touch on some stuff here. But I love on other interviews that I've heard with you, John, almost you're really, really transparent, and it's simple stuff, but just stuff that they wouldn't think about. You even walk them point, and I want to just get to one point, which is like the back of a conversation, back piece of a conversation where you go, hey, I'm going to look at about 4 or 5 properties like this. Probably only one of them is going to be a win-win situation for both my company and you as the seller. I'm going to come out and see, and kind of like setting the whole expectation, just the psychology around that is simple in theory. Everybody understands it, but until you explain that, it's kind of like a light bulb going off in understanding.
Yeah. I mean, if people feel like they're being sold or that, you're going to try to buy their property, overcome every objection and just get the deal done somehow. When people feel that, they feel that it's pressure and it doesn't feel good. And what happens is you hold the situation. How do we respond to them? Well, we clam up, we give one-word answers, we protect ourselves, we bail out of the conversation, we give excuses why we can't make a decision now. We don't have an open, honest conversation. So when you set the stage like that and you just say, hey, listen, I buy, 10% of the houses I look at. Sometimes, I love the house and it'd be an awesome win for me, but it's not the best for the seller. So we decide not to do business. Sometimes it's a really good deal for them and they want to move forward, but for some reason, it doesn't fit my business. It's not a house I can buy right now. So we don't do business. But in 10, 15%, we just find this win-win. So my mission coming out today is not to buy your house. It's just to figure out, is this going to be a win-win? And if it is, just perfect for both of us, we'll figure out what next steps to take. And just setting that up like that just starts to relieve all the pressure so people could just take a sigh of relief and go, all right, let's dig into this and find out what to do. And that's when you can have a real open, honest conversation and understand their situation better than anyone else and eventually win the deal.
I love two books that I mentioned on this show, and anybody that I talk to really about sales or psychology in that aspect, but Never Split the Difference and Pitch Anything, where it's talking about the foundation and kind of the first step is getting them to get to that side that you just showed. Okay, we can do business, where you're kind of the very primal instinct is just showing like you're not a threat to hurt their survival, where a lot of times it's like the biggest financial decision, if not one of the biggest financial decisions that that seller has in their lifetime.
Absolutely.
Awesome, man. One button, hot button issue or topic I want to talk on too. And again, guys, this is broad strokes. Definitely check out John's stuff. I'm going to put it in the show notes. I could have him on here for 9 to 5 and not get through everything I want to talk to. But some broad strokes for you guys. Just some stuff that's coming up 2020, last couple of years, which is more popular. Again, is virtual wholesaling.
Yeah.
Whether investors are using that, if they're high level, having a lot of success, and just looking to duplicate those processes and systems they have and use another, market, or if they feel like their market they're in is kind of tightening up, they're seeing their deal flow decrease, and they're looking to do something to increase their revenue. Talk to me a little bit about virtual wholesaling and just phone versus in-person sales in general.
Yeah. So I'll start very broad, high level. It works. Over the phone works. It's the almost the exact same conversation too. 99% of the conversation is the same on phone or face-to-face. Because their decision is going to be the same. And a good salesperson walks them through that decision piece by piece, all the reasons why they would sell to you and all the reasons why they wouldn't. And you just kind of lay it out all on the table and work through the decision together. So regardless if it's face-to-face or over the phone, it's the exact same conversation, and both of them work. When I look at the two, and I've got customers who are 100% virtual, I've got customers who are 100% face-to-face, and I've got ones that are hybrid. And what I see is that what model they have is 100% determined on lead flow. And here's what I mean by that. Whether it's one market or multiple markets or whatever, right? It's lead flow. If you have a whole lot of leads and you can't get to them all, and you don't have the manpower and you're leaving deals on the table just because you can't keep up with the volume, then it makes sense to start adding some type of virtual component, at least to some of the deals, to hit a higher volume of those deals. And usually this is when we see a hybrid model. That's usually the first step, is they go, okay, lead flows up. We've only got 1 or 2 acquisition agents. Why don't we just try to close them over the phone? And if we don't, then we'll go out there and we'll try to close the deal. That's usually the first step into going virtual. And sometimes it stays there, and that's a perfect model. Other times, lead flow continues to get high, and you get to the point where you say, you know what, let's just do this all virtual. Virtual, you don't have as high of a close rate, but it's still good. And you can still buy as deep of a discount, sometimes even deeper. So virtual, you're going to have a little bit of a lag in conversion rates, but you make up for it in volume. So you have more leads than you can handle. You go, you know what? We can talk to 100 people in a given week virtually. We can only go out to see 20 to 30. I know I'm not going to close as many over the phone, but I'd rather close 20% of 100 people instead of 25% of 30, right? And it makes sense that way. And then, of course, if you're moving into other markets, it makes sense to test it at least virtually instead of building an entire infrastructure as you're testing the market. So that's what I see day in and day out.
Awesome. One of the most important things, if not the most important thing from our perspective, being a lead conversion, lead management system that automates some of your manual follow-up, which is another variable that plays right into that point. Rewind that if you need to hear that, guys. I get that question or questions around that all the time, as far as how much time you should be spending on leads, going on appointments versus not going on appointments, things like that. But what I'm alluding to is the importance of follow-up, how you're doing it, everything like that. Can you touch a little bit on how your highest level clients are following up, whether it's, virtually, virtual, hybrid, or in-person type business models?
Yeah. So from the highest perspective, it's completely automated, and they're waiting for somebody in the follow-up, and they're waiting for somebody to raise their hand and say, let's re-engage. Now this isn't, this is for the mass follow-ups. This is for the most of the leads. Now, there's always a small portion of leads where you go on an appointment and you're really, really close. You're going to personally follow up for a week or two to see if you get the deal closed. I'm not talking about those. What I'm talking about is the hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of leads that have been developed over a year or multiple years that you just don't want to let go of, because some of those will, turn into deals. That's all automated via email is the most popular way. Of course, a lot of people use different telecom solutions like ringless voicemail and text messages and that stuff. There's legal implications. Just know the law, do the right thing. You got to kind of put that caveat out there, right? But as long as you're doing everything the right way and ethically, automate the follow-up. And really, you're just waiting for someone to raise their hand. And if we want to go a step deeper into, okay, what should the follow-up be? Well, it almost doesn't matter as long as they continue to open up or read or engage with the follow-up. And 2 points, that they continue to look at it. And number 2, that they know you're still out there buying houses. So it could be, hey, I'm going to send you the best coupon or deal or discount for our city, in our entire city each week, right? There's donuts, free donuts here. There's half price tacos here. I'm going to send you the best stuff. And then at the end of the email, you could just say, hey, by the way, if you know anyone selling a house, reach out to me. We're still buying, right? As long as they're engaged and they still know you're buying, that's all your follow-up has to do. A lot of people get confused and they think the follow-up has to continuously be going after the deal. But if your follow-up is just, in whatever form it is, if the follow-up is just this endless parade of how about now, how about now, how about now, it's not going to be effective because people will stop responding. People will start answering. They'll stop subscribing. They're just going to tune you out. So you got to have something of value. And you say, by the way, we're still buying houses if you know of anybody or you're interested in selling yours.
Very good perspective. I'm definitely going to relay that to our members and community. One thing I heard you hit on too was almost assumption of the no, or assumption that they're not ready at that time. They'll buy in the future, but not at that time. Hey, it's John. I'm checking in. Probably not ready for you to close within the next 2 weeks, but just want to let you know I'm still buying houses. Yeah. If you or anybody is buying, 2020, we're in the first part of the month here, feel free to give me a call.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that approach because, again, it's the opposite of how about now, how about now, how about now? Because people only answer that call 2 or 3 times before they never answer it again, right? Or only open that email 2 or 3 times. So that approach, again, you want to provide value. So, for example, most would pay a referral, right? So it's just like, hey, just want to let you know for the next 2 months, I am looking for houses just like yours, 2, 3, or 4 bedrooms in kind of a 10 or 20 mile radius of you. If you happen to know of any, and I end up buying it, more than happy to give you a $250 or $500 referral fee. People will open up those emails all day because they'll be like, okay, what's he paying for this time? You can develop leads. They continue to open the emails. And they know you're going to be there. They know you're buying houses still. So I think that is the right way to follow up. You got to add value somewhere. You don't want to have pressure. You don't want to be just pounding them with a never-ending series of how about now? What about today? It's Wednesday. It's like green eggs and ham. It's like, could you in a box, with a fox? It's like people just get tired of it and they tune it out. So value, and by the way, I'm still buying houses. If you work those into your follow-up messaging, no matter how you deliver them, you'll be successful with follow-up.
Very cool. John is clearly a sales expert. One other area I see him as an expert in is systems and processes. Before I hit record on the interview here, I was mentioning to him I like a lot of his social media, daily content, things of that nature. For a lot of what I talk about, for anybody who chats with me, this show, everything like that, which is more so mindset, time freedom, everything like that. So I want to hit on a few points that'll help open up into your brain operating system for the listeners to hear as well. But one piece that I clipped in, I think at some point in Q4, was a post of yours that I put into my morning abundance box that I look at before I start working, just one of the steps of my routine. But talking about, and some of these are going to be similar in principle, but I want to hear your philosophy on them, about money not being the true indicator of success, but really time freedom being that, or time allocation, your choice of time allocation being that, and how you've been able, I want to kind of hear your philosophy on that, and then kind of how you've done that just in your personal life. Super intriguing to me and something I try to think about every day.
Big learning curve for me. Just to be honest about my own flaws as a human being. I was originally driven just by money, right? Money and ego. I want, all the cool stuff. I want to be respected. It was for me starting my own business. And I think it is for a lot of people, if we're being honest with ourselves. Mm-hmm. It's, we say it's for all kinds of different reasons, but we want the money because we think the money is going to bring all this cool stuff. But what happens is whenever you start a business and you realize that the money-making part's not that difficult, you start to look at your life and value different things in different ways. So for me, for 20 years was in corporate America thinking if I only made this amount of money, I'd be happy. And then I made that, and then 2 times, and then 5 times, and then 10 times that. And I was like, man, I'm really not any happier. And I've got all the money. And so for me, that was the learning curve. And I realized I had to take a step back and go, what the heck's going on? What makes me happy? And to me, it was, well, yeah, the money's great, but I'm not living the life I want. Right? I'm miserable. I'm chained to just a different job. It's a better paying job, but I'm chained to it. I'm watching my kids grow up. I'm not spending enough time with them. My relationship with my wife is not where I want to be. And I just keep telling myself there's going to be this magical time in the future where I'll have time to take care of family and wife. But right now I got to grind. And I did that for a couple of years. And then I realized this could be the next 20 or 30 years of my life if I don't make a change and get very intentional about freeing up some time. You got to be intentional about it. And once I got to that point, I just started looking at everything we did and kind of like we were talking about before and going, is this the right process? Is there a more efficient way? Can it be automated in some way? And then just piece by piece of my business, putting those things in place. Sometimes things worked, sometimes it didn't. We would continually test. But I probably made that decision about a year ago. Fast forward to today. My business for the REI, I've got a few businesses now, but the REI one, the sales training one, takes me personally 1 to 2 hours a week of engagement. We net over 6 figures every single month. Gross is 150 plus every single month. And that was all intentional. And the unintended consequence of automating everything is the business grew and continues to grow. Because when I told myself, I forced myself to get out of the grind. It forced me to put in systems and processes and automation. And that just made the business grow, right? It's amazing how processes and automation will let you turn up the knob on everything. And it'll also help you step back and see your business from a new perspective and make better decisions and get creative. And the business grew as a result from that. It wasn't a bottleneck. It's funny, the less involved I am with my business, the better it does. And so that was kind of my journey. But I want to be completely honest and say from the front, I was really ego driven when I got into business. All I wanted was the money. And it was kind of life slapping me in the face for me to learn that lesson and then forcing myself to make it happen. And now looking back, I can say it was the right decision and everything I learned from it. But it wasn't an easy process for me.
Mm-hmm. That's life, man. Living, learning, adjusting. And that's just the social conditioning of our country. I mean, this is the only country I've lived in, blessed to be in that situation, but kind of just the social conditioning and even like the real estate wholesaling conditioning, at least a good portion of people that are proud and post about grinding and see that as even especially around like this time of the year where they talk about, you know, how many hours they're putting in or even like how many books people are reading, which don't get me wrong, reading books changed the trajectory of my life massively to massive success from what I was doing previously. But that's just kind of the social conditioning or norm for a lot of folks is just they think the more you grind is the better your life and business is going to be. Another post I've had clipped of yours is another thing that I love. It's helped me meditate more and try to be more in deep thought is you talk about the compound effect of if you were to step away and be completely disconnected from your business, which is part of what you were just going over, for an hour a day, how much different would your business be? If you're able to just think about high level strategy, what type of relationships you can make, what type of processes you can put in place, what type of processes you could automate, everything like that. So one thing I was going to ask you here as we're kind of closing the interview is what would be like the best advice for investors in this new year here, whether it's business strategy, advice, stuff like that. But for me, this is like the 80-20 or the foundation of success in life, which is happiness and being able to have the choice of how you allocate your time.
Yeah. So I want to touch on something we just finished up with and then move into that. So about the grinding. Now, hard work's important. So I don't want to discount it. Mm-hmm. It's just what you work hard on is the important thing. So I think if you're going to grind and you're going to work hard, grind and work hard on building the processes that will in turn grind and work hard for you. Right. So that's what you build. That's what you grind. Don't grind on stuff that you're going to do the exact same thing day in and day out. Grind on building the systems and processes that will end up doing all the grinding for you. Right. So our marketing, for example, I built it And then I did a series of videos, and that was a little bit of a grind. But now those get shown to between 100,000 and 200,000 people a day. That's not me cold calling. I did the grinding to build the processes that now grind for me. So if you're going to do it, but grind on the right stuff, right? So I wanted to touch on that because hard work's necessary. Just work hard on the right things. Mm-hmm. The next thing that I'll touch on there is, I'd say all the progress in my personal and business life comes from the reflection, comes from thinking and giving myself time to just reflect. So for me, I have found that, and this is 100% for me, I'm not telling anyone how to live their life. My best ideas, the progress I have comes every morning somewhere between 4 and 6 and 4 and 7 a.m. I wake up early. I either go to the gym or use my home gym. My mind is completely clear because business isn't happening. No one's awake, even in my family. I work out slowly and methodically the way I do. I don't rush through it. And I sit there with my phone and I just start having all these ideas and just, epiphanies, hey, this happened yesterday. Can we repeat that? And I just start emailing myself all morning long. And so by this time in the morning, by 8 o'clock or so when my wife takes the kids to school, I usually end up with somewhere between 5 and 15 emails. And I just let them sit there in my inbox for a day or two. And then I go through everything I've compiled. And I end up saying, that was a stupid idea to most of them. But then I end up with 1 or 2 action items that I end up taking action on. So I just kind of let them simmer. I don't take immediate action. I let them simmer and just let them sit there for a little bit. So today, what my actual work day ends up looking like is I get up, I work out, I have all my best ideas, I email them to myself. My email inbox is 99% emails from me to me because I've outsourced everything else or automated it in some form or fashion. And then once or twice, every few days, I erase them all except for the best 1 or 2 ideas. I put a plan in place to take action on them. And I simply repeat that over and over again. And that's where all the progress in our businesses come from.
Love that, man. Well, guys, some great nuggets here. It's a lot of high-level stuff. Like I said, email us. I'd be happy to hook you up with John's masterclass module, which is more sales specific, even though we touched on a ton of great nuggets today, man. Appreciate you coming on. Appreciate the way you choose to live your life, helping out other people, and you're very methodical about it, grinding on the processes where, ripple effect, compound effect, you're going to be able to help out the most people in the deepest way. So really appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. My pleasure. And guys, make sure to check out the show notes. Once I get this published, everything like that, I'll have everything in there so you can check out free content. You'll see everything John can check out other podcasts. He's on a ton of stuff, YouTube, podcasts, everything like that. So definitely check him out, and best of luck to you in the beginning stage of 2020 here or whenever you're listening to this.